goes by. I'm Katie. Okay, this is the setup we kind of have going. This is, full disclosure, this is my first time doing like a virtual cooking demo. I've done a couple at Ikahi, but I've done a lot of cooking, just like not talking to the camera. So bear with me, this is also kind of like my first time doing this, but I think the angle's all right here. So we're gonna make dumplings today. This recipe is vegan. I'm not currently vegan right now. I have been in the past, but I think it's really easy to cook things that are vegan just without meat and dairy. I think that's the ultimate goal too, is just eating less meat. So this recipe it's pretty easy, and it's also forgiving in the sense that you kind of can just throw in whatever vegetables you have on hand. And we'll just like season it with things that, you know, kind of go into that Asian flavor. So yeah, we can get started. I'm gonna heat my pan to like a medium high heat. And we'll let that go for a second. I actually only started eating dumplings like a year ago. I lived with an old roommate that used to make them, and that's kind of how I got introduced to making them. And they're a lot easier than I thought. I think I was kind of intimidated by it too, because I'd always like to order them out, but they're really, really easy to make at home. It's a relatively healthy dish too, but this one has a ton of veggies in it. So I'm gonna just heat this a little bit longer. Today, in the filling, we're gonna use carrots. This is really funny. Mushrooms, carrots, onions, and I actually already prepped these. You kind of need the filling to be pretty fine in this, so I actually did it in a food processor. You can go ahead and chop this all, but I just find a food processor makes it easy and super, super fine. I'm gonna cut the bok choy separate though, because I don't want that to get too mushy. And then we also have some green onions. I have some garlic that I just peeled, and, oh sorry, ginger, and then some garlic too. So we're gonna put that in first and then add the rest of the veggies. And we're also gonna add some tofu. All right, so I'm gonna use a little bit of sesame oil. You can also feel free to water saute these vegetables. Or do like a mix of half and half if you don't want to use all water and just a little bit of oil. I just really think sesame oil gives a lot of flavor to the dumplings. I'm gonna give this a mix, and it's not a ton of oil. It's like maybe a couple teaspoons, and we're gonna make a lot of dumplings for this. And since we're just steaming it, it's not a ton of oil to begin with. So for the garlic and ginger, you also need to have these pretty fine, and you can go ahead and chop that. Things easier, but I got this on Amazon for like 10 bucks. It's a microplane or a zester. It just makes things really, really fine and cuts down the time of chopping things. And I find that ginger is like kind of stringy, and it's really hard for me to cut that fine. Also, my knives are not as sharp as they should be, so it's a little bit more difficult. But this is heated up now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and grate some ginger. I also don't really have a recipe for this too. I feel like dumplings are one of those things you kind of just, you eyeball everything and kind of taste as you go. But I do love a lot of ginger and a lot of garlic. It's almost, you can see it, it's almost like a paste when it comes out on this. It's nice, real nice. And then next, we're gonna do some ginger. I have 3 cloves. I think I'm only making about 20 dumplings today. I love garlic though. But you can obviously use more or less depending on your preference. If you're using a microplane too, just be careful because the blades are really sharp. So when you get to the end, you could take off a little bit of finger if you're not careful. All right, so garlic and ginger in. Now I have the onions, carrots, and mushrooms, and I probably should have cut the bok choy before I heated the pan, but I forgot, so we're gonna just work fast and cut those things. But I'm gonna add the onions next. This is white onion. Red onion works great too. So onion's gonna go for a second. I'm gonna let the onion, ginger, and garlic cook for a couple minutes before I add the mushrooms and carrots, but this whole filling only takes like a few minutes to cook anyways, so it's super easy. I'm using bok choy. You can really substitute this with any kind of leafy green too, as long as it's cut super fine. You could use spinach or kale or collard greens would be really good too. I'm just gonna give these a chop. I think I'm just gonna use the green part actually right now. Their leafy greens can be kind of a rough chop just because they're gonna cook down a lot too. All right, so onions looking good. And you just wanna cook the onions for a couple minutes with the garlic and ginger, just until they're almost kind of see-through, translucent. And then we're gonna go ahead and add the mushrooms. This is like 13 mushrooms. The lighting's not great. This is like 13 mushrooms. They're baby bellas, but again, any mushrooms really are gonna work in this. And carrots. This is 2 carrots that I also put into the food processor. Peeled them before. You can kind of see coming together. Right. So I started making dumplings with the roommates I live with right now. I live with 3 other people, and they had never made them before either. And it's just such a fun way to bring everyone together. I'm not like the biggest pro at wrapping them, but I find that, you know, it doesn't, as long as they're all sealed together, it doesn't really matter how they look, but they are the most delicious things to eat with a little dipping sauce too. I love them. Never made dumplings at 11 a.m. though. I feel like it's more of a dinner thing for me, but you know, midday dumplings never hurt. Okay, so the mushrooms and the carrots are, you can see they're pretty soft. And when you chop it up super small, it doesn't take a long time for them to cook. So we're gonna go ahead and add the greens in now. Bok choy. And we'll just let these guys wilt for a second. All right, cool. Now I have some green onions I'm gonna cut up. And I like these in the actual mixture too. I like the flavor of them. I know we used white onions, but I really like the taste of green onions. So I'm just gonna cut up some of these. All right, so that was 2 green onions. I love a lot of like garlic and onion and ginger. So again, just at your own preference, but I'm gonna add all of these in. There we go. So the last ingredient we're gonna put in this is tofu. I use firm tofu. It just kind of holds its shape the best and has the least amount of water. So I'm gonna use like that much, a palmful. I'm just gonna crumble this up right in.
Katie, can I ask real quick, do you drain the water out of that or do you just take it directly from the tray?
So I opened this last night and I used it just to like fry up some tofu, but I found this brand at Whole Foods that doesn't really have a lot of water. Like it's super, super firm, but if I cut it open and I just pat it with some towels. Yeah. And I think that, you know, you can kind of see the steam coming up too. The water will cook off with these, with this, yeah. Okay. So those are all the ingredients that are going in. I'm gonna season it now. And this is also like really forgiving if you don't have some of these things. You can kind of just season to taste, but I'm gonna do a little salt. And then I'm gonna use chili powder. Some chili flakes. Just a little, because I can't really handle too much heat. I'm trying. You can use, let's see, I have shoyu. You can also use tamari if you don't want it. It's a little lower in soyu. You know, actually, let's use tamari. I think I have. Oh, just kidding. This is liquid aminos, so it's Bragg's. It kind of has the same taste. It's like an alternative. It's just a little bit healthier. So we're gonna use that instead of soy sauce. I'm just gonna give it, you know, a few splashes. is honestly how I make most of my things. It's just a few splashes and just kind of try it. This is mirin. It's similar to sake. It adds like a little bit of sweetness. Great in Asian dishes. A little bit of that. And rice vinegar. Right. Give this a little stir again. Yeah, and it's starting to really come together, and that really comes from having these vegetables chopped super fine. I think that's probably one of the most important parts. I've made these before where like I have the carrots and they're not chopped super fine, and I find that it just kind of creates like a clumpy dumpling. So yeah, super fine chop on all these veg. Okay, it smells great. Okay, last little thing we're gonna add to this before we wrap them is a little bit of cornstarch. If you don't have cornstarch, you can also use arrowroot starch or tapioca starch. It's basically just a thickener. So it's gonna make the filling kind of stick together, which is really gonna hold in when we wrap it. So what we're gonna do is just add a little spoonful. I wanna say like, let's see, what is this? Like a tablespoon. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this. And we're just gonna mix this up. And we're adding a little water just because if you add the cornstarch right in, it's just gonna clump together and you're gonna get like chunks of cornstarch. So this just makes sure that it's even throughout the mixture. So we have that. That's the last thing we're gonna do, okay? And when you add cornstarch or any other kind of thickener like that, you notice right away, it really starts to hold together, which is what we want. Okay, I'm just gonna try this really quick to make sure I got the seasonings right. Oh yeah, that's great. Ginger, garlic, love those flavors in the dumplings. And I think that's kind of too why you can just go ahead and add in whatever vegetables, because as long as your seasonings are kind of there, it's really what comes through. Also like a good dipping sauce at the end. All right, so that is the filling. I'll show you guys close up. So you can kind of see that as I like press the spatula against, it kind of holds together. And that's really, really gonna be nice for when we wrap the dumplings. So yeah. Okay. We actually need to let these cool for a little bit. So I'm gonna put this in a bowl. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this filling is so good. If there's like ever any leftovers that don't fit into the dumplings, I'm just like straight up eating that out of the bowl. Okay, so I'm gonna let this cool for a little bit, because if we put it in the dumpling wrappers right now, the dumpling wrappers are just gonna become like way too sticky. So I guess I have a little kombucha. I called it mocktail earlier, but I realized I don't really like that name. I think I want to call it like a spritzer or something. I don't know, mocktail. I'm just not really a fan of that name, but this drink that I'm gonna make is a really, really great afternoon little pick-me-up. It's really pretty. Kombucha, I love kombucha. I know some people aren't the biggest fan. It has like a carbonated kind of vinegary taste, but it's so good for you, full of probiotics. Makes me feel really, really good. So I just kind of have a zhuzhed up version of, you know, what would be like an afternoon cocktail, but it's a little better for you. So let's, I'm gonna move some of this out of the way and we'll make that while the filling cools. How about that? Any questions so far? And I know everyone's muted actually. I don't know if we can do questions right now.
You can do questions if anyone wants to unmute themselves in the upper right hand corner, but just you can mute yourself again when you're done asking. Thank you, Katie. This is so awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, aloha, Katie. This is your dad.
Oh, no.
And you're
Mother, mute yourself. I'm like, let me clarify. Anyone that's not related to me.
You're following in your dad's footsteps with a cooking show. I love it.
Oh, man. Do you have a question?
I think I'll just put it in the chat later on. I'll chat. I can chat it to you.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna grab the things for the Oh, also, pro tip, if you get herbs from the store, if you store them in little jars or whatever with a little bit of water, they last for like 2 weeks. I find that when I just put it in a bag, the herbs get brown in like a few days, but I never waste any of the cilantro or whatever herbs I have when I put it in water. It lasts for a really long time. In the fridge too. Little pro tip. All right, so we're making a little kombucha drink now, and you can go ahead and use whatever flavor kombucha. I love this brand, the Health Aid one, and this is passion fruit tangerine. So we have kombucha, we have lemon, and you can go ahead and use any citrus for this. If you have orange or grapefruit too, that'll be really nice. And fresh herbs, so we're gonna use mint today. Basil would also be really good. And a little bit of soda water. And a little bit of soda water. Okay, so we're gonna add, I have a little shaker here too. So we're just gonna go ahead and add like a little bit less than a cup of kombucha. If I could open it. So like 3/4 of a cup is perfect. I have this cute little rocks glass I'm gonna put it in. So kombucha, and then I'm gonna take like, let's see, a few mint leaves. I'm gonna slop them first, kind of brings out all the oils and flavors. And then I'm just gonna give it like a rough pinch, and I'm gonna throw this into the shaker. And then I'm gonna use a lemon today. We're gonna do half a lemon juice into the shaker as well. I'm not adding any extra sweetener to this, and I don't really think it needs it. There's also like a small amount of sugar naturally in kombucha. Sorry, not naturally, but basically kombucha is a SCOBY that eats the sugars in tea. So there is a little bit of leftover sugar in here, but most of it gets eaten by the SCOBY, which is the bacteria, which is how you make kombucha. But that's a story for a different time. So I'm not going to add any extra sweetener, but honey would also be really good in this if you have that around. So that's basically it. I just did the kombucha, some citrus, and a little bit of herbs. Now, I don't even have regular ice cubes right now. I just have large cubes. So that's what we're shaking with. Like one is fine. Yeah, it's already cold. Okay. Make sure that's really tight down there. I'm just gonna give a little shake. Oh, getting all over me. I'm gonna do this over the sink. Okay, not the best shaker, but it's cold. You get the gist. Okay, so this is my glass, rocks glass. I'm gonna put large cube in here. And then we're just gonna pour cocktail, a little spritzer, right over like that. And then just as a fun little garnish, let me grab one more lemon. Okay. My favorite part about having this little kombucha drink is a twist on top. So when you have a little citrus twist, I'll show you, you just kind of express it on the top, and all of the oils from the lemon peel or whatever citrus you're using, it goes on right onto the top of the drink. So that's like the first thing you smell and taste as you're taking a sip of the drink. I just think it's really nice. So you take the outer part of the citrus and you just kind of spritz it right onto the drink. And I also like to go around the rim with that. Makes it nice. Okay. Stick that in there. And then you can also give it a little garnish with another sprig of your herb. That's it. So that's my little kombucha spritzer. I love drinking this in the afternoon. It's so good. You really get the citrus from the lemon. Oh, I almost forgot. You don't need to do this, but a little bit of soda water on top too makes it a little bit more bubbly. And if you're using like orange juice or something where the color of the drink is a little bit stronger, it gives it like a nice gradient. But yeah, that's it. Ooh. Oh, that's so good. I'm just gonna sip on that while we finish making our dumplings. Okay. I think the filling's gonna be cool enough by now to get started. Just put all this stuff away.
Katie, somebody wants to know if you're playing Irish folk music. It doesn't sound like it.
I don't really know what the genre is. I don't think it's Irish folk. I think it's like EDM-ish. Irish folk. I can play Irish folk music. That's what everybody Okay, can I wash my hands really quick? This is my living room behind me. Okay, so now for wrapping it. I'm going to, this is the biggest pot I have right now. Kind of just gotta work with what you got, but this is filled like halfway with water. I'll start that on a boil. So just on high heat. And let's talk dumpling wrappers for a second. So you can find dumpling wrappers at most grocery stores, I find. I was at Whole Foods yesterday and they only had wonton wrappers. And I've actually made homemade dumpling wrappers previously and they're really, really easy. And I know everyone has a little extra time on them right now. So if you do have time, it's literally just flour and water that you roll out. You can, they're not perfect, but you know, it's fine. I made these yesterday and I froze them and just defrosted them. The last time I made homemade dumpling wrappers, I thought the taste of the dumplings were like 10 times better. So if you do have time to make them homemade, they're super easy and really fun too. I mean, I sat around for like an hour yesterday just rolling out dumpling wrappers. So I'll see if we can link the website, but Marian's Kitchen, she is like the queen of dumplings and just Asian food in general. And she has a great recipe for dumpling wrappers. So that's what I use. But yeah, just flour and water. So we're gonna use that. And then rid of all this stuff.
Katie, have you ever tried making those wrappers with whole wheat flour? And how did it come out?
You know, I haven't, but I was actually thinking about that yesterday because I have whole wheat pastry flour. And since it's just flour and water, I'm sure you could use that instead. I don't see why it would. I don't even think it would taste that different, to be honest. I did just use regular flour, but whole wheat flour or even like spelt flour or like, you know, a gluten-free like buckwheat flour or something if you wanted gluten-free too. I think that would work really well. Yeah, for if we do more of these videos, I was thinking, because I love making gnocchi too, and I was thinking of making a sweet potato gnocchi, because gnocchi is basically potatoes and flour too. And I was thinking of doing sweet potatoes with like a whole wheat flour too. Just give it a little healthy twist, you know? So yeah, we'll try that out. But to fill the dumpling wrappers, you're gonna need a little bowl of water. On the side here, you're gonna take one of your dumpling wrappers and you're just gonna give it a little spoonful of filling. You don't wanna overfill them because then they're too hard, like that's a little bit too much too. Because then you're gonna get the filling like seeping out of the sides. So like that much, that maybe even like a little bit too much, we'll see. But then you just wanna wet your finger a little bit and go along the outside edges of each of the outside edges of the dumpling wrapper. And this is gonna create a glue. So when you fold it together, it's gonna stick to itself. Okay, now, like I said, I'm not the master at pleating, but I usually just fold it over and kind of create, get all the air out of the top here. And then you kind of, here, I'll show you on this side. You kind of fold in and tuck, fold in and tuck. And then that last one, I kind of just pull over. So same on this side, just fold over. And you know, got yourself a little dumpling. I think they're so cute. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do all of these. I'm gonna keep it on this mat while I work, and actually I'm gonna put a little more flour down here so they don't stick. If you have like parchment or wax paper too, actually maybe not wax paper, but like parchment paper, just because the filling starts to get a little bit warm through the dumpling wrapper and it starts to get a little bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knock these out. Little filling in the center, water around the edge. Oh, these are so awesome. I cannot wait to eat these. Okay. Get the arrow and then give it a few pleats, tuck in the side, give it a couple pleats, and then tuck in the side too. Shape doesn't really matter as long as that top part is sealed, then you're gonna be good to go on that. I actually love the smell of the brags in this. I've usually only made it with soy sauce in the filling, but brags has that kind of like salty umami smell. It smells awesome. Okay, that's a little bit too much filling. Wrap it up, eat it. I feel like you can make these like so cute and fancy, and they're really not expensive to make at all. Even if you get dumpling wrappers from the store, you can get like a 100 pack for like a few bucks. And like I'm kind of just making these for me or my roommates if they want a mid-afternoon dumpling. But I could probably eat this whole batch by myself.
Oh no, I shared your address with everybody. We're all coming over.
Oh, that's fine.
Katie, your dad commented that he wants some for curbside pickup.
Oh,
Put on some Henry Capone's background music.
in California?
He said ship on dry ice to your fam and
Oh,
homies in California.
we're getting there. And this is why it's fun to do it if you have people you live with too, because it's not like a hard time consuming thing, but I mean, it definitely like, you know, got to wrap each one. But if you want to have like a little dinner party with your roommates or your family or whatever, it's really, really fun to get everybody involved with this. And last time I did this too, we had like a few different fillings because some people in my house eat meat, some don't. So we just had, you know, separate little filling stations, and then everyone just came and we wrapped some veggie ones and some non-veggie ones. Filling. All right, cool. So my water's boiling now. I just have like 6 here made. I won't go through and make the next 30 on camera. But so you want your water to be boiling here. These only take, I want to say like 2 or 3 minutes to boil. Just keep an eye on it. Since the filling in the middle is already cooked, it really just matters to cook the dumpling wrapper around. If you are using another filling that maybe not everything is already cooked, you definitely have to keep an eye on making sure the inside is cooked. But since these guys are already cooked in the middle, not going to take very long at all. So I'm going to grab I'm just going to plop these guys in carefully. I feel like I've touched hot water and hot things so often. just like put my fingers in the water. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Okay, so they're gonna sink to the bottom first. Actually, let's see if I can just, maybe carry this over here for a second. They're gonna sink to the bottom. I'm just gonna give them like a really, really quick little stir just to make sure they don't stick. But the easiest way to know when these are done, or what I've heard, is when they float to the top, then they should be ready. But, just a couple minutes on these.
Katie, there's a question from Takemi. What is the thickness of wrapper if you're steaming versus boiling? Does it make a difference?
I think it should be the same because the recipe that I use, she makes like gyoza where you steam them and they create like the crispy bottom. I think it's the same. These dumpling wrappers are, you can tell they're very, very thin. One important thing if you are making homemade is you want to start by rolling the ball. You want to roll out, not the whole thing, and you want the very center to be a little bit thicker than the edges, so that the middle holds the filling, and then when you're wrapping, you don't have that super, super thick outside, and it makes it easier to pleat too. So yeah, just a little thicker on the outside, but you can tell they're really, really thin here. I used a wine bottle because I don't have a rolling pin. But like a plastic cup will work too if you don't have that. Okay, so
I love your resourcefulness. And then we'll share the link. I can actually email everybody the list of ingredients and the website for making the wrappers too. So I can send that out to everybody.
okay, so these are all floating now, but I'm like touching it in. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. The way that I tell when they're done is I kind of touch it. And if you can kind of feel the filling through the dough, then that's really cooked. The first time I made dumpling wrappers, I did make them too thick. And I found it was almost like too gummy. So the thinner you can get the wrapper, I would say is the best. Okay, so these are done. My little plate here. I don't even bother straining these. I'm dipping them in a sauce after too, so I just find that little extra liquid on the bottom does not really matter. Yum! Oh my gosh. They're like my favorite things to use. Okay, so these are them once they're done. Let's see if I can get some better lighting on these. Little dumplings. Okay, so the sauce I'm gonna use for these. Let's see here. Actually, I didn't really think about it, but I usually do. I'm gonna do a little bit of shoyu. Kind of the same as the seasoning I put into the mixture. I'm gonna do a little rice vinegar. A little mirin. I really like the sweetness you get from this. I'm gonna do some ground ginger in the sauce too. Never can have enough, you know? Let's see. Let's do a little bit more green onions in there too. That'll be good. Move this out of the way. Okay. Let's chop this up. Okay, that sounds good. I'm gonna give it just a little stir. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. And there you have it. So I have my dumplings, little dipping sauce on the side. Okay, I need to eat this while it's hot. That's the thing too. These are really good eaten right after they come out, which never seems to be a problem around here. Let's try this. Oh my God. Mm. Oh, hot. It's really hot. I'm burning my mouth, but it's really good. Oh, this dipping sauce is really, really good with this. Honestly, if you just had a little bit of Bragg's too by itself, would be totally fine. Or, I don't know, you don't even need a dipping sauce. I also think adding some peanut butter or like the PB2 powdered peanut butter for like a little peanut sauce. You could do that with like some Bragg's and some lime juice. That would be really, really good too. But yeah, little kombucha. Oh, this is great. This is a great lunch. So I think that's all I have for today, but